Jai Hind everyone. In this video, we are continuing with chapter 1 of Themes in Indian History. Previously, we have completed two parts, and this will resume from finding out about craft production. So let's get started. Finding out about craft production. I'm sorry, just a minute. Finding out about craft production. This locate Chanudaro on map 1. This is a tiny settlement less than 7 hectares, which is less than 7 hectares. Chanudaro. Where is Chanudaro? It is in current day Pakistan, as compared to Mohenjo-daro. So see the difference between Mohenjo-daro and Chanudaro. Whereas Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and some of other towns are recognized as major settlements, while the other are small settlements. So you can see the difference between the Chanudaro and Mohenjo-daro settlement. Almost exclusively devoted to craft production, including bead making, shell cutting, metal working, seal making, and weight making. So, which is the location that is dedicated to craft, exclusively to craft production? That is Chanudaro. So, Chanudaro is dedicated to craft production. And what does craft production include? Bead making, shell cutting, metal working, etc. The variety of materials used to make beads is remarkable. So in this paragraph, we'll see what are the materials and items that are used to make this craft production or beads. So the first one is stones like carnelian. So what is carnelian? It is a beautiful red color stone. So carnelian is in red color. And then we have jasper, crystal, quartz, steatite. So these are all the stones used. And then we have metals. Metals like copper, bronze, and gold. And next, shell, fanes. So fanes, in the previous video, we have studied what is fanes. It is some kind of ground sand mixed with color and a gum, and it is fired. So then we'll get fanes. And we have terracotta or burnt clay. Some beads were made of two or more stones. So there was amalgamation of stones also, or we can say they are cemented together. Some of with gold caps. So with gold caps, two or more stones are also used to make beads. And what are the shapes? The shapes were numerous, like disc shaped, cylindrical, spherical, barrel shaped, and also segmented. So these are all the shapes that in which beads were produced in. Some were decorated by incising or painting, and some had designs etched onto them. Techniques for making beads differed according to the material. So according to the material, the technique used to make them differs. Steatite. Steatite is a very soft stone, was easily worked. Some beads were molded out of paste. So some beads were molded out of paste made with steatite powder. This permitted making a variety of shapes. Unlike the geometric forms made out of harder stone. So steatite is a soft stone. So what they made it into a powder, and with that powder and the paste, they molded it into different shapes. Whereas with hard stones, it is difficult. So basically, we'll find geometric patterns and forms on harder stones. How the steatite microbead was made remains a puzzle for archaeologists studying ancient technology. So steatite microbead was made, and it has been a puzzle for archaeologists also. Archaeologists' experiments have revealed that the red color of carnelian. So we have studied a stone called carnelian. Now we'll study how the red color has been got from this stone. So it was obtained by firing yellowish raw material and beads at various stages of production. So this is the basic method where the beads and yellowish raw material were heated at various stages of production. With that, we'll get the red color of carnelian. Nodules were chipped into rough shapes and then finally flaked into final form. grinding, polishing, drilling completed the process. So these are the final processes in making beads. Specialized drills. Specialized drills have been found at Chanudaro, Lothal, and more recently at Dholavira. So these are the three places where we can find specialized drills, that are LCD. LCD for Lothal, Chanudaro, and Dholavira. And what did we find here? We found specialized drills. Nageshwar and Balakot, you will notice that both settlements are near the coast. So these two settlements, that is Nageshwar and Balakot, are near the coast. And these Balakot is in current day Pakistan, whereas Nageshwar is in current day India. These were specialized centers. So which centers? Nageshwar, Balakot, specialized centers for making shell objects, whereas Chanudaro is devoted to craft production. And LCD, that is Lothal, Chanudaro, and Dholavira, we have specialized drills. And in Nageshwar and Balakot, these are specialized centers for making shell objects. And what are the shell objects included? Bangles, ladles, and inlay, which were from making shell objects in Nageshwar and Balakot. These were exported or these were transported to different settlements. It is likely that finished products from Chanudaro and Lothal were taken to the large urban centers such as Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. So there was this transport system where the crafts were made and beads were made, etc. Whatever the jewelry that is being made from Chanudaro and Lothal, and these were taken to large urban centers such as Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. So this is about craft production. Under this, we'll study identifying centers of production. In order to identify centers of craft production, archaeologists usually look for the following. So how do archaeologists find the centers of craft production? Basically, raw materials such as stone nodules, whole shells, copper ore, tools, unfinished objects, rejects, and waste material. So how is waste material can be used? So if you go to a carpenter shop, you will see the wood waste and etc. So if you find traces like that, you maybe in future we can conclude that okay, there was a place, there was a carpenter shop here, so that we found wood waste. So this is how the waste material can be the best indicator for craft work. Waste is one of the best indicators of craft work. For instance, if the shell or stone is cut in to make objects, then pieces of these materials will be discarded as waste at the place of production. So this is how it can be an indicator. Sometimes larger waste pieces were used up to make smaller objects, but minuscule bits were usually left in the work area. These traces suggest that apart from small specialized centers, craft production was also undertaken in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. So not only in small settlements or specialized centers like Chanudaro or Dholavira, etc., the craft production was undertaken in large cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa also. And the next one is strategies for procuring metal. So the crafts are being made, beads were being made from metals also like gold, copper. So, but how do they get materials for this craft production or for production in the settlement? So in this topic, we'll study that. As is obvious, a variety of materials were used for craft production, while some, such as clay was locally available, and many as stone, timber material had to be procured from outside the alluvial plain. So the stone timber has to be procured from outside the alluvial plain. And terracotta toy models of bullock carts suggest that this was one important means of transporting goods, people across land roads. So across land roads, bullock carts were the main mode of transport, and riverine routes along the Indus and its tributaries, as well as coastal routes were all probably used. So these are the modes of transportation used that has been undergoing in the settlement. And the Harappans procured materials for craft production in various ways. How? They established settlements such as Nageshwar and Balakot in areas where shell was available. So in these areas, shell was available. So they were made into specialized centers of shell craft production. And then we have other such sites were Shortugai. So where is Shortugai? It is in current day Pakistan, Afghanistan. And previously we have studied that there were traces of canals in Shortugai. So this is the same settlement that we have studied. So what is Shortugai famous for? It is the best source of lapis lazuli. So lapis lazuli is a blue colored stone that is very high valued. So lapis lazuli, a blue stone, very highly valued. Let me highlight the sources. So Nageshwar, Balakot, shell, and in Shortugai, lapis lazuli, and then we have Lothal. So what is Lothal famous for? Which was near sources of carnelian. So carnelian is a type of stone used in craft production, and which is carnelian from Bharuch in Gujarat. And then we have steatite, current South Rajasthan and North Gujarat. And we have metal from Rajasthan. So from Lothal, which was near sources of carnelian, which is from Bharuch in Gujarat, steatite, southern Rajasthan and northern Gujarat, and then we have metal that is from Rajasthan. So these are the materials procured from these settlements. And then another strategy for procuring raw materials may have been to send expeditions to areas such as Khetri region of Rajasthan, which is famous for copper. And then we have South India. So basically the Karnataka region, current day Karnataka region, which had gold reserves. So there were expeditions have been sent to regions like Khetri region of Rajasthan for copper and South India for gold. These expeditions established communication with local communities. So what happened when two communities, there could be establishment of connection or communication between with local communities with the help of these expeditions. Occasional finds of Harappan articrafts, so such as steatite, micro beads. So what happened? There have been traces of Harappan articrafts in these local communities, so which can be an evidence of communication between between the Indus Valley civilization and local communities. This is evidence in the Khetri area for what called Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture. So these local communities was given a name that is Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture, and here we have find the evidence with its distinctive non-Harappan pottery and unusual wealth of copper objects. So what in this Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture, it had pottery that is different from Harappa's and also unusual wealth of copper objects also. So from this we can say that this region had reserves of copper. It is possible that the inhabitants of these regions supplied copper to the Harappan. So there is an assumption that these people from this culture had supplied copper to the Harappans. And here in the map, we can see about Harappan civilization and West Asia. Contact with distant land. So until now, we have studied about inside the trade that is happening inside the civilization or with the local communities, and now we'll go overseas. So in this topic, we'll cover that. Recent archaeological finds suggest that the copper was probably brought from Oman. So before there were these assumptions that it was being brought from Khetri region, but recent archaeologists found that it was probably brought from Oman. And now we'll see why. Oman, which is on the southeastern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. So here. Chemical analysis have shown that both the Omani copper and Harappan artifacts have traces of nickel. So what happened? The copper that is found in Oman and also the copper that is used to make Harappan artifacts have traces of nickel. So suggesting a common origin. There are other traces of contact as well. So a distinctive type of vessel, a large Harappan jar coated with a thick layer of black clay has been found in Omani sites. So this is the Harappan jar that is found in Omani sites. This is a jar that is layered with black clay. Such thick coatings prevent the perlocation of liquid. So this thick coating, what happens? It doesn't allow the waters or the liquids to get to permeate. We do not know what was carried in this vessel. So although we have found it, we are not able to conclude that what was being transported in these jars. But it is possible that the Harappans exchanged the contents of these vessels for Omani copper. So it's like a barter system where Harappans got copper and Omani people got this jar for the copper. Mesopotamian texts datable Mesopotamian texts datable to 3rd millennium BCE. So, the 3rd millennium BCE of the text referred to copper coming from a region called Magan. So, Magan can be perhaps a modern, old name for modern Oman. So, if you see here, it is being written as Magan only, which is current day Oman. And interestingly, enough copper found at Mesopotamian sites also contains traces of nickel. Another archaeological find suggestive of long distance contacts include Harappan seals, weights, and dice and beads. In this context, it is worth noting that Mesopotamian texts mention contact with regions named Dilmun. So, Dilmun, probably the island of current Bahrain. So, Dilmun is probably the island of Bahrain. And then we have Magan, which is current Oman, and Meluha, possibly the Harappan region. So the Mesopotamians used to call the Harappan people as Meluha. They mention the products from Meluha. So in the text, the products that have been brought from Harappa region or from Meluha have been mentioned. That is carnelian, lapis lazuli, copper, gold, and varieties of wood. A Mesopotamian myth says of Meluha, may your bird be the Haja bird. May its call be heard in the royal palace. So some archaeologists within the saying, the archaeologists try to find about the bird, and they are thinking that the Haja bird was the peacock. Did it get its name from its call? It is likely that communication with Oman, Bahrain, or Mesopotamia was by sea. So, from this, archaeologists concluded that the communication which was established with Oman, Bahrain, and Mesopotamia was by sea. For inside trading, they used land routes where bullock cart and riverine routes were the main modes of transportation. But for overseas communication, it was through seas. Mesopotamian texts refer to Meluha as land of seafarers. So, how was Meluha described? It was described as a land of seafarers. Besides, we find depictions of ships and boats on seals also. So, here if you see, this is a seal depicting a boat. Here we can see the boat. So, on seals also, these ships and boats were engrafted. The next one is seals, script, weights. Seals and sealings were used to facilitate long distance communication. So these are used for long distance communication. Imagine a bag being sent from one place to another. Its mouth was tied with rope. On the knot was affixed some wet clay on which one or more seals were pressed, leaving an impression. So if the bag reached with its sealing intact, it means that it hadn't been tampered with. The sealing also conveyed the identity of the sender. So what happened when you're transporting a bag? Suppose when you're transporting some grains put in a bag. So what the Harappans used to do? They used to tie it and put some wet clay on that. They put that seal. So when it reaches its destination and if the sealing is intact, it wasn't broken or any damage, it means that the bag has been transported without any tampering. So it indicates safe transport or no, I can say no tampering. And also the sealing also conveyed the identity of the sender. An enigmatic script. So enigmatic means which is very confusing. Enigmatic means confusing. Harappan seals usually have a line of writing. So if you see here, this is a Harappan seal, and these are the letters on which it is considered a signboard found at Dholavira. So these are the symbols. See, we can see similar symbols, but we don't know what it means. Harappan seals usually have a line of writing, probably containing the name and title of the owner. Scholars have also suggested that the motif, generally an animal, conveyed a meaning to those who could not read. So the seals were facilitative to readers and also non-readers. For readers, it was in line of writing indicating title and name of the owner, whereas for people who cannot read, the motifs, generally like animal, they conveyed a meaning to people who cannot read. Most inscriptions are short. The longest inscription was about 26 signs. Although the script remains undeciphered, means nobody is able to understand what it is. To date, it was evidently not alphabetical. So the script is not alphabetical, where each sign stands for an oval or consonant. As it has just too many signs, somewhere between 325 to 400. So in this range, we have the signs that are used in Harappan inscriptions. It is apparent that the script was written from right to left. So like this, from this way. Whereas currently we are writing in this way, Harappans did in the reverse. And cramping of as seals show a wider spacing on the right and cramping on the left, as if the engraver began working from the right and then ran out of the space. Consider the variety of objects on which writing has been found. So on these many items, the writing has been found, where seals, copper tools, rims of jars, copper and terracotta tablets, jewelry, and bone rods. So on all these materials, objects, this writing has been found. Even an ancient signboard. Remember, there may have been writing on perishable materials too. Could this mean that literacy was widespread? So, although we have seen writing on these objects, we cannot conclude that literacy was widespread, or we cannot make any assumptions that literacy was confined to a certain region, or it was spread to all the settlements in civilization. So, there was no conclusive evidence. Next, weights. Exchanges were regulated by precise system of weights, usually made of a stone called chart. So chart is a sedimentary rock, which is basically cubical. So based on this, exchanges were regulated with no markings. So the stone chart was generally cubical with no markings. The lower denominations of weight were binary. So in this numbers, the denominations were there, and in higher denominations followed by 160, 200, 320, 640. The smaller weights, so this 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, these were used for weighing jewelry and beads. Metal scale pans have also been found. So the weights were measured by a stone called chart, which had no markings and generally cubical. There it had two denominations. One is lower denominations of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, which are generally probably used for weighing jewelry and beads. And the higher denomination can follow it 160, 200, 320, 640. And also apart from that, we have found metal scale pans also. And the next topic is ancient authority. There are indications of complex decisions being taken and implemented in Harappan society. Take, for instance, the extraordinary uniformity of Harappan artifacts as evident in pottery. So wherever we go, we find the similar or the same artifacts. Notably, bricks. Though we have studied that bricks, the standardized ratio of bricks used in Harappan settlements was 4:2:1, and it has been same throughout all the settlements. Bricks, obviously not produced in any single center, were of uniform ratio throughout the region from Jammu to Kashmir. So from Jammu to Kashmir, this was the uniform ratio used, but we cannot say that it was produced only in one center. We have also seen that settlements were strategically set up in specific locations for various reasons. Besides, labor was mobilized for making bricks and for construction of massive walls and platforms. But the real question is, who organized these activities? If we look for a center of power or for depictions of people in power, archaeologist records provide no immediate answer. So there was no answer if we are looking for a central authority that used to manage all this and control all these activities. A large building found at Mohenjo-daro was labeled as a palace by archaeologists, but no spectacular finds were associated with it. So this large building, which is found in Mohenjo-daro, was regarded as palace, but there are no artifacts or there are no any objects from which we can conclude that yes, it is a palace. A stone statue was labeled and continues to be known as the Priest King. So this is the Priest King. This is the stone statue where it was given the name Priest King. This is because archaeologists were familiar with Mesopotamian history and its priest kings and have found parallels in the Indus region. So, or in Mesopotamian history, the archaeologists were familiar with the priest kings and they thought they labeled this stone statue as also priest king. But as we will see, the ritual practices of the Harappan civilization aren't well understood yet, nor are there any means of knowing whether those who performed them also held political power. So we do not know anything about ritual practices, but even if we know, we do not know if the person performing ritual power has some power or not. Some archaeologists are of the opinion that Harappan society had no ruler. So there was a division between archaeologists where one section believes that Harappan society had no rulers and everybody enjoyed equal status. But other section feels that there was no single ruler but several. That Mohenjo-daro had separate ruler, whereas Harappa another, and so forth. Yet others argue that there was a single state given the similarity in artifacts. So what happened? The second section thought that there was no single ruler but many rulers. That means one ruler for each settlement. But again, there is a argument that this all is a single state given the similarity in artifacts. So based on the objects and artifacts, archaeological evidence, these arguments have been made. And also the evidence of planned settlements, standardized ratio of brick size. On these basis, they are arguing that all the settlements were in a single state. It is likely that Harappans practiced some sort of democratic system. Some of the structures with their given features were created apparently for utilitarian purposes. So what happened? We cannot conclude about the power authority, power and people who held that, but we can, based on the artifacts and archaeological evidence, we can say that Harappans practiced some sort of democratic system. And next is the end of civilization. There is evidence that by 1800 BCE, most of the mature Harappan sites in regions such as Cholistan had been abandoned. So Cholistan belongs to the mature Harappan site. And dating to 1800 BCE, it has already been abandoned. There was an expansion of population into new settlements in Gujarat. So what happened? Till during the mature phase, the Harappan was concentrated here in this region and it started moving inside. If you see here, it was concentrated here and it started moving inside to the subcontinent to places like Gujarat, Haryana and western Uttar Pradesh. In the few Harappan sites that continued to be occupied after 1900 BCE, there appears to have been a transformation of material culture. So, if we observe Harappan sites that were in existence after 1900, there was a shift of material culture. So, what is that? Disappearance of distinctive artifacts of the civilization like weights, seals, and special beads, writing, long distance trade, craft specialization also disappeared. So from 1900 BC, the Harappan sites had no evidence of these artifacts. In general, far fewer materials were used. So compared to the Indus Valley civilization or compared to the mature phase, very small quantity of materials were used. House construction techniques deteriorated, whereas urban Indus Valley is known for its urban planned city, whereas now the house construction techniques deteriorated and large public structures were no longer produced. So large public, like we have studied public bath, etc. in Mohenjo-daro, whereas now these are disappeared. Articrafts and settlements that are found currently indicate a rural way of life in what are called late Harappan. So this phase is named as late Harappan. What brought about these changes? Several explanations have been put forward. These range from climatic change, deforestation, excessive floods, shifting or drying up of rivers, to overuse of the landscape. So these can be the explanations about these changes. Some of these causes may hold for certain settlements. So, but yeah, even if these are the reasons, they have been effective to certain settlements, but they do not explain the collapse of entire civilization. So, what is being told here? Although these can be the reasons, they can be effective for certain settlements in the civilization, but there is no evidence to say that these factors explain the collapse of the entire civilization. It appears that a strong unifying element, perhaps the Harappan state, came to an end. So, what happened? The strong unifying element, that is Harappan, came to an end. This is evidenced by disappearance of seals, script, distinctive beads, pottery, shift from standardized weight system to local use of weights, and decline and abandonment of cities. So, these are the reasons that can be that can be effective for the collapse of the entire civilization. And these are the reasons for stating that Harappan state came to an end. The subcontinent would have to wait for over a millennium for new cities to develop in a completely different regions. So this is the explanation given for end of the civilization. Next, evidence of an invasion. So invasion was also one of the theories given for collapse of Indus Valley civilization. Under that, we have one evidence. Let's see that. Dead Man Lane is a narrow valley varying from 3 to 6 feet in width. At the point where the lane turns westward, part of a skull and bones of thorax and upper arm of an adult were discovered, all in very friable condition. So friable means fragile condition, at a depth of 4 feet 2 inches. The body lay on its back diagonally across the lane. 15 inches to the west were fragments of a tiny skull. It is to these remains that the lane owes its name. So it is from John Marshall in 1931. So it is evidence of a skeleton found. 16 skeletons of people with the ornaments that they were wearing when they died were found from some part of Mohenjo-daro in 1925. So there was no removal. So from this we can assume that it was a sudden death. Much later, in 1947, R.E.M. Wheeler, the then Director General, 1947 Director General of ASI, tried to correlate this archaeological evidence with that of Rig Veda, the earliest known text in the subcontinent. He wrote, the Rig Veda mentions Pur meaning rampart or fort or stronghold. Indra, the Aryan war god, is called Purandara, the fort destroyer. So who wrote? R.E.M. Wheeler wrote about this. Where are we these citadels? It has in the past been supposed that they were mythical. The recent excavation of Harappa may be thought to have changed the picture. Here we have a highly evolved civilization of essentially non-Aryan type, now known to have employed massive fortifications. What destroyed this formerly settled civilization? Climatic, economic, or political deterioration may have weakened it, but its ultimate extinction is more likely to have been completed by deliberate and large-scale destruction. So, what is being told? It is referred. The Indus Valley civilization is referred to as non-Aryan type. So the reasons climatic, economic, political deterioration may have weakened it, but it could not be the sole reason for the destruction of entire civilization. So what is being told? Ultimate extinction is more likely completed by deliberate, so purposefully and large scale destruction. It may be a no mere chance that a late period of Mohenjo-daro men, women, children appear to have been massacred there. On circumstantial evidence, Indra stands accused. So R.E.M. Wheeler, based on the Rig Vedas, accused Indra. So he's also the Aryan war god for the destruction of the Indus Valley civilization. In the 1960s, the evidence of a massacre in Mohenjo-daro was questioned by an archaeologist named George Dales. He demonstrated that skeletons found at the site did not belong to the same period. So, what's his argument? About the skeletons that are found in the region did not belong to the same period of the existence of the Mohenjo-daro. Whereas couple of them definitely seem to indicate a slaughter. So some of the skeletons indicate a slaughter. The bulk of the bones were found in context suggesting burials of the slopiest and more irreverent nature. There is no destruction level covering the latest period of the city, no sign of extensive burning, no bodies of warriors clad in armor and surrounded by the weapons of the war. The citadel, the only fortified city of the fortified part of the city, yielded no evidence of a final defense. So this is the argument from George Dales. As you can see, a careful re-examination of the data can sometimes lead to a reversal of earlier interpretation. So what happened? Any study of something can replace our early assumptions. In this respect, it is necessary to mention the recent archaeogenetic research carried at the site of Rakhi Gari. Rakhi Gari is in Hisar district of Karande, Haryana, is the biggest Harappan city in India, and it is spread over 550 hectares. In order to study the genetic history of the Harappans, DNA was extracted from skeletal remains excavated at Rakhi Gari. This research was carried out by Deccan College Deemed University, Pune, in collaboration with Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, Hyderabad, and the Harvard Medical College. The analysis of the data indicates that the Harappans are indigenous people of this region. So what does the genetic study says? Harappans are the indigenous people of this region. The genetic roots of Harappans go back to 10,000 BCE. So from here, the roots have been grown of Harappans. The DNA of Harappans has continued till today, and majority of the South Asian population appear to be their descendants. So the current population of South Asia appears to be the descendants of who? Harappans. Due to the trade and cultural context of Harappans with distant regions, there is a mixture of genes in small quantity. The continuity without any break in genetic history as well as cultural history rules out large-scale immigration of so-called Aryans. So what happened? Without any, there is a break in genetic history or cultural history, and this indicates that large-scale immigration of Aryans. This research also indicates that the people coming from bordering areas and distant regions were observed in the Indian subcontinent. At no stage, the genetic history of Indians was either discontinued or broken. As the Harappans started moving towards Iran and Central Asia, their genes also spread in these regions. The same team of researchers reconstructed 3D features of Harappan people. The reconstructed facial features of the Harappans, male and female, show remarkable similarity with modern day population of Haryana. So from the 3D structures made of Harappan people, we can see the similarity between them and also the modern population of Haryana. This study has indicated that unbroken continuity for 5,000 years in this region. So in the entire genetic history from the Harappans, where their roots go back to 10,000 BC until their extinction, we can say that there is no break in the continuity of the genetic genes of the Harappans until 5,000 years later also till today. So this is about, we have studied the craft production and various centers that are specialized in various craft production. And then we have completed strategies for procuring materials. And the next topic was seals, script, and weights. And then we have completed ancient authority and the end of civilization. With this, I'm concluding this video. In the next chapter, next video, we'll completing the whole chapter, and we'll go through the main topics that are important for the CDS examination. So I hope you like this video, and if you feel so, please like and share the video, and we'll meet in the next class. Jai Hind.